Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Status Effect Show. I'm your host, Michael Atkins, and today we are talking about the importance of brand marketing. To some, brand marketing is simply slapping a logo next to your company name and calling it a day. Most of the people will think that whatever product or service that they're selling will speak for itself, and they don't see the value of proper marketing. However, my guests and I don't believe this to be a good strategy when formulating a business plan. Marketing can be a huge factor when trying to sell your company to the world. Hell, it can be the biggest factor. Brand marketing is not simply slapping a logo next to a name. It's a voice that breathes life into your company and lets others know who you are. Here to help me talk about that are the co-founders of AOE Creative, one of the top brand marketing companies in the gaming and esports industries, Simon Bennett and Markel Lee. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having us on.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Of course, of course. Well, let's start off by telling the audience why you both got into marketing and why gaming and esports.
I can start off. Markel Lee. I started off in the traditional marketing agency life and started working with agency in Austin, Texas. But I had a real love and passion for gaming and design. And so I made sure that, I wanted to find my foothold within this industry as best as I can. And even though I kind of came from the FPS side of things, I had a lot of friends that were really strong in the fighting game community. So I found a local group that was doing stuff here in Dallas. And I started kind of helping them out with building the FGC here in the Dallas DFW area. And from there, had the opportunity of working on different fighting game events. So I started helping out with production, live events, their marketing campaign strategy for events that they were doing. And that's why I ran into Jonathan from Pandex Gaming, who's at Esports Stadium right now. Me and him started working together to kind of help build the fighting game community production and started doing more events. So started going to Texas Showdown in Houston, Absolute Battle in Dallas, KIT in Tennessee, over to, of course, CEO as well as Evo, and kind of working behind the scenes with their production, their live show, and with other events around the community, kind of doing like the promotion. Because of that, that got me to work with a lot of different influencers, as well as larger organizations within the gaming esports community, to the point where I ran into those building Infinite Esports, as you know and remember. And that's where I met Simon. I was creative director. Simon was the VP of marketing. And we worked with each other a year there. And after kind of leaving that situation, we ended up building AOE Creative, which we are at right now. And I'll let Simon introduce himself.
Yep. So Simon Bennett. I've been in the gaming industry 17 years now. Started way back in the day at Blizzard Entertainment. Really, I guess as the original wave of esports was just starting, not as Twitch was just making the transition from Justin TV to Twitch. I was teaching a bunch of games masters in World of Warcraft about StarCraft 2 and why Tastosis is the best casting duo of all time, etc., etc. There wasn't really esports as such, but I guess I was as close to an esports team at Blizzard at that time. I worked my way through a number of companies in that space. So I worked initially with Blizzard, then went over to wargaming.net, which did a game called World of Tanks, which I think is still very popular now, where I kind of understood the difference between competitive gaming and esports. World of Tanks is a great competitive game, but not a good esports game. Though we did somehow manage to broadcast at the first IEM Katowice to like 30,000 people, which at the time there was a lot less competition out there for good esports titles, I guess. Went from wargaming over to Razer. I worked with Razer for a number of years, doing all their marketing and branding and events for Europe. So we got to know a lot of people in the industry through that, with doing a lot of work with people like Take TV, O Gaming, some of the more interesting European grassroots organizations. We did my favorite promotion was probably Home Story Cup, We sponsored Home Story Cup pretty much every year as a brand, and got to do a lot of work with a bunch of StarCraft players that I, obviously idolized when I was at Blizzard. Then transitioned from Razer over to a company called Faceit.com. They do ECS, which has now become Flashpoint League. Worked a lot with the CSGO and Dota scene there, so went a bit back to my roots working from the FPS audience. We also launched and ran the first ever live television broadcast of Rocket League, which is the NBC Universal Open with NBC. And did a bunch of other really, really cool stuff. We made some really great connections with brands like Monster Cat, where we looked into how can we do a bit more blending of gaming and esports with music, and working on stuff that's maybe a little bit more left field than the normal. Then left Faceit initially to start my own company. Ran that company for a maximum of like 3 months before I met a guy called Chris Cheney, which was the launch into the Infinite days. So moved over to the US then, started Infinite, met Markel. We're kind of like two sides of the same coin almost, in the sense of how we think and approach things. We sort of like hit it off super early on, like really like got into what we want to do, what we want to build. We realized we both kind of had the same dream for what we wanted to do in the industry. And yeah, that sort of led us to AOE, where we realized pretty early on that there was a lot of demand for an agency that could provide sort of, I would say, like premium quality, mainstream marketing and branding that maybe hadn't been as easy to get hold of in the esports scene and gaming scene, especially not outside of a publisher. So like Riot Games obviously has an incredible graphic design team, but like
Right.
Blizzard can't use that, or a new game developer can't access that group. So we realized there was a lot of interest from that and from esports teams. And yeah, we started the company with the plan of like, the first few months, get the website set up, get the company set up, start the outreach. And we had 3 clients on the first day. And we were like, oh, well, okay, at least it's proven our concept. Yeah, and it's been going really well actually ever since. We can thankfully count some really interesting clients as our clients right now. We work very closely with Blizzard Activision on both Call of Duty and Overwatch League. We work with some really exciting new game developers. We've worked with almost all of the US esports teams at one point or another, most of the European esports teams as well. And we actually work with quite a lot of like, what would you call it, industry adjacent brands, like some that we can talk about, like Nerd Street Gamers, who we helped with their rebrand and their marketing strategy. And then some we can't talk about that we are still working with, who have products yet to be released.
No, I completely understand that. And I know you kind of explained a little bit of a general overview of what a AOE is. Can you tell me a little bit about like the services you guys offer, whether or not it's different packages or individual services, things like that?
Yeah, sure. So we are a boutique agency. We don't actually ever plan not to be a boutique agency. So almost every piece of work we do is pretty bespoke. We don't generally have a rate sheet, as it were, because every project is different. We do a number of things, but I'd say our core things are, we do social media marketing and social media community management and community building. That's the core of our marketing strategies. It's all about community building. We really feel like community and influencers are the current 2 most powerful strategies through marketing, though we do some more traditional stuff when it's needed, especially when we're working with game publishers for game launches. So we've done some really interesting stuff, like working out Kickstarter strategies for building community and things like that. We obviously do traditional marketing and content. So it's generally short form content. We don't do like long form video content. There's plenty of incredible agencies out there that do that, and ours is much more focused on like advertising, like ad content, or social media interaction and community building. So we do a lot of like memes and gifs, and like we do things like for Call of Duty League, we're doing a lot of the spray, working out really interesting ways to showcase their in-game team packs and things like that, ways to really sort of engage that community in a more natural way.
So showcasing like the guns, the skins, the tokens,
yeah,
and the sprays within the game.
Okay. Yep. And then I don't know, Markel, you want to talk about the graphic design and design side of things?
Yeah, so definitely going with the creative design, brand design. We want to make sure a lot of the stuff that we do, we notice that in esports and gaming, a lot of teams, like you mentioned before, earlier in the beginning of this section, that a lot of people decide to create stuff that's just cool. That, hey, I created a logo, it doesn't mean anything, but it looks good. Here's the brand, it looks good. Now I'm going to slap that all over social media and on Twitch and stuff. And originally it goes well, and then at the end of the day, they're like, I really don't know what I want to do, or what the point was, or where I want to take the brand from here. So what we like to focus on is storytelling, even when it comes to some of the graphic design, as well as just giving an overall look, feel, style, tone to a brand. So even though we do just, raw design work, we like to focus that on some background narrative behind the full brand. So a lot of the stuff that we do, we don't like to do one-offs, because one-offs doesn't allow us or the client to properly push and promote the brand in the best light, because you're just doing it for that one moment and something that doesn't transition over time. So that narrative stays the same, it stays consistent, and everything else that you're working on builds that narrative throughout the whole campaign. And so that's something that we deeply focus on and really want to push, especially within the game and esports community, is building that, because a lot of the teams that we talk to all say the same thing. And it's like, we made something, it was cool, it was nice, but I really don't know what we need to do moving forward. And we need to think about the longevity of our brand and what it actually means to us.
We made it like 10 years ago. Some kid made it. We don't even remember who. And now we have to actually tell people what it means, and we really have no idea.
Yeah, and as a company, you don't want to get stuck in that. You don't want to be like, oh yeah, it has a deeper meaning, I just don't really remember what that is.
Yeah, I don't really like our mascot, and I really don't know why we have it.
Yeah. Or like the EG logo with the making up stuff about why they've got an extra little swoosh on there that nobody believes that.
Yeah, no.
Shows our creativity. It's like, does it?
Does it really? No, I think that's a great strategy. I think the fact that you guys want to see a company's vision or a brand's vision through to the end. You don't just want to be there for a single one-off. You want to really focus on the idea and create this community, this culture, and really see it through all of its stages, and not just only one of the however many stages it's going to go through.
And we don't we spend a lot of time talking about this with various different clients, and I'd say it's probably one of the reasons why we win a lot of RFPs, is that we don't approach it like we're an agency. We actually approach working with clients like we're a department for that client. We actually think that the agency model is pretty flawed. That sort of old-fashioned way of doing it, where you don't speak to them very often, and then you have the one weekly phone call where you've got to try and cram all of the updates and all of the time, and then they're charging you $8,000 a month for basically nothing. You have to do the work, and then they're just extra hands to do work for you. We do not approach it that way at all. We're super aggressive. We build a communication pathway where we talk to our clients literally every day. We post memes and dumb shit to them on a regular basis. We become friends with them. We also build a system of work where there's the reason why we don't charge by the hour, because I hate when an agency dumps an extra $5,000 bill on you and then tells you, oh yeah, because we had that one conversation last week. We don't do that at all. It's all a set time. We factor in how long that takes us, and we charge that amount. And that's that. Once we've charged that amount, we will talk to the clients all day long if we want to. It's very casual. we also run on like a traffic light system as opposed to a scope of work. Like we have a set scope of work, but we build that knowing that things change, and we have like a traffic light system. So we'll say to them like, okay, right, we've done a fair bit out of scope this week for you. It's kind of in like an orange light right now, like a few more steps, and just to let you know, we're going to have to discuss how much more this is going to cost you. But we try and keep it really flexible. Like for example, again, Call of Duty League, we'll pretty regularly do like a few extra graphics for them in a week, just because they needed it, and it's important that they feel supported by their agencies and they don't feel like we're going to hit them with scary numbers on a regular basis.
Sure.
So I think that our approach is very very proactive. We always say to clients, like, if we're not slightly annoying, we're probably not doing our jobs right. We like to be like, okay, well, because we've been working on this project, we had a bunch of ideas that fit with what we know you're working on. Here they are, just have them. Like, you can do what you want with them. If you want us to help you with them, we're happy to do so.
Sure.
And I think that builds a really great relationship with our clients, and why we continue to work with them. Like a good example would be, sorry, go on, Mike.
No, I was going to say, I mean, it's really smart to have that conversation and that type of relationship with clients, especially for the fact that like we could come to them easily and say, hey, we understand that you want to do this. Here are some other points that we think might be more beneficial or an addition to what you're doing, and have that free, open communication, right? Because we want to see our clients grow and get better, and build their portfolio as well as we build ours, and we help one another kind of grow as a company, as a base, as a fan base together, right? We want to see that. We want to see them succeed, right? And so we want to be a part of that, as in we're here to help you out, and we're not here just to collect our cash and run out too. Like, no, we want to actually see this go somewhere. And it's really built on the fact that we're passionate about the industry, the esports community, the gaming community, nerd culture, that we want to see that grow as well. Like, a lot of things that we talk about, that we see, is people say, esports is like sports, right? But again, it's on the rise. It's on the come up. It's not there exactly yet. It's not full stadiums, right? Like we don't have full stadiums for every event that we do. There are some that we take over, but not every day, all day. Like, sports games happen all the time, and they can fill out the arena. We're on the process of getting there. So in order to do that, we need to promote ourselves properly. We need to take some things a lot more into consideration when we think about how our brand actually works, how it speaks, and how our audience perceives us. So
we like it, Markel says it very casually now because it's just so normal to us, but we really freaking love the industry we work in. Like, we love it, right? And we've always said that we don't really feel like it's that easy to market a product you don't love. Like, you can do a pretty good job, but you're not going to do like the best job unless you really like what you're doing. And we literally, as a company, even now that we're social distancing, we sit on Discord with our rather rapidly growing staff, and we talk shit about video games all day long. Like, we talk about Dungeons and Dragons, we talk about video games, comic books, like movie, like, we're like nerds to the core. Like, we absolutely like today was we started spamming like old classic cartoons from the 80s and stuff.
Oh my gosh.
It builds a culture that we want to push within our company, but also we bring clients into those kind of conversations. Like, the amount of times we don't start meetings with like, oh, okay, good afternoon everyone, today's meeting. We normally start meetings where they're coming in and we're already talking shit about something that's happening, like, oh my god, the drama about this, or like a client will come in and we'll be like, yeah, but what's your favorite like comic book character? And like, it breaks down boundaries, and it allows our clients to feel more comfortable, and we get more information, because end of the day, especially on the branding side, we're not making the brand, we're making the brand that you want. And I think that's really important, and it's part of why Markel will like nail this into people about the creative brief process that we do. It's so important for clients to understand we're not like VaynerMedia coming in and saying like, you don't know what the shit you're talking about, we're going to make a great brand. we're here to say, you know what brand you want. We're here to pull it out of you and make it into an insanely cool brand. Like that's I think a really key part about brand building is like, and I think sometimes agencies get a little egotistic about that, is you're not making a brand for yourself, and it's the same that other people feel sometimes, is you're making a brand for your client, and for us our client is the brand, but for the brand their client is their customer. And I think that it's really important for us to put them in a position to actually for us to be able to pull out that information from them, and keeping everything casual and fun and relaxed allows people to feel more comfortable in saying like, actually we're really worried about this, or here's a big problem we have with our brand, it's super masculine or something like that, and we don't know how to, and you can't get to that point quickly unless they feel comfortable and like they're talking to friends. And our goal is to really put that experience and that position up as fast as possible so they feel comfortable with it.
Sure. Well, I mean, you guys definitely have the passion, and I've seen some of your work, so I know that that nerd culture is definitely in your core. Not only the core of both of you two, but the company. You guys bring that in. I've been to your office. I've had meetings with you guys, both professional and just for fun. So I think. I think you guys are some of the most down to earth people that I can think of. I mean, you make people feel comfortable when talking about their brand and expressing their ideas. But also, you're not going to bullshit them either. You're going to tell them like it is. Like you have not considered all of the angles here. You haven't figured this out yet. You need to do this before you take this step. So I definitely know from personal experience that you guys won't lie to people just to make them feel happy. You guys give them the honest truth and what's going to excel their brand. And I think it's one of the most admirable things to find in a boutique agency or just any company in general. I think you guys are doing it right, and you guys are genuine when it comes to nerd culture and wanting to excel it.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say exactly. Like when we work with clients, that's another reason why we want to make sure we stay, in a sense, boutique. One, because of that hands-on approach. For the fact that Simon and I, even though we're the co-founders of the company, still are hands-on with every project, with every client that we worked with, right? And we want to be there to build that relationship and show you that we care about your product just as much as you do. And that's why we stay within our realm to kind of, talk to the client, be a part of some of the meetings, and make sure that everybody understands on our team what you want. But being boutique also allows us to have the opportunity to say no to some people, right? Like we're not going to pick up every project. We're not going to pick up everything that comes to us. There are certain people that we feel like, hey, we might not just be a good fit for you, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, and we can admit to that. So let's not work on this project together, and maybe we can help you find someone else in that process, right? But overall, we definitely want to work with as many people as possible, but only if it makes sense for your brand and what we can do to provide for you to help you out. Again, that's why we like to focus on making sure that we do more than just the one-off pieces with you. Because
it's the same reason like we don't do partnerships, for example. Because we want to be able to connect people that we genuinely feel like are a good connection. We're not getting paid to do it. I think that's, just to reinforce what Markel said, that's a big part of why when we're advising people, we'll often just be like, hey, you should meet so and so, and we'll just do it because it's, if they hit it off and they do well, then it will lead to good work for us, right? Like that's fine. Like we're not playing the short game. We're playing the game of, we want our clients to do really well. Like a good example is Nerd Street Gamers. We help them with their brand. Not help them. We built the brand for them. 9 months ago. And we've been chatting with them off and on ever since, and they've been doing incredible stuff over the last sort of. You'd think a company that their main product is LAN centers would not be doing well right now.
Right.
But they pivoted really well. They're doing some incredible stuff with Valorant. They're getting a lot of visibility. They're building their brand really well, like from the instructions that we work with them on. And we haven't worked with them as a client for like 7 months. But now they're like, hey, we got another thing that we'd like, could you guys come help us with this other thing? And because we stay friendly, we're not just here for the money or for the the business. We'll still be chatting to people since then, give them advice. Like Paige, who is their head of marketing, is a fantastic speaker as well. So we've put her forward to a bunch of stuff to be like you should put Paige on the stage. Like she's super good. Like there's no benefit to us from doing that other than we really believe she's good. So that's why we put her forward.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are really growing the industry by just making connections or having other people make connections. Like you said, referrals. Building relationships in this industry is key. Not only to build a personal brand or yourself in the industry, but just in general. I mean, when you're trying to excel in really any industry, networking and building relationships is going to be the best thing that you can do, because then it'll open a lot of different doors for you. So that's important that you guys are doing that. What would you guys say are some of the most important keys to marketing?
I mean, first, one of the biggest things is understanding your audience. With anything that you do in marketing, with us, when we do the creative brief portion of things, I mean, it's really good for us to go through that with a client, because it actually helps the clients understand exactly what their brand is and where they want it to go. And so we usually try to go through that process with them and everybody else on that team that's going to make a decision, right? That's going to be the final yes or no. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're not going to do. And usually the reason why is because once we get into the brand exploration and look into why your brand is a certain way or what you actually perceive it, everybody kind of has a different input, right? And it's good to notice that. Like, it's good for a company to go, I think it's this way, and the next person say, I think it's this way, I think it's this way, and you're like, wait, I thought we were all on the same page. And that's been one of the most important parts when we go through that process, is a lot of people go, oh man, like, okay, maybe we do need to figure this out because we all aren't thinking of the same future for this brand. And to
sorry
tie
to jump
to
on that, like Markel, but like, or when they'll say like, oh well, we want an edgy brand, and we'll be like, are you sure? Because if we go back to the last exercise we did, you said you wanted to be available to everybody.
Yep.
So that's juxtaposition to edgy. Like,
Right.
which one do you want, and make them think about that.
And that's what I was going to go back to next, was like, understanding what your brand is and not what you want it to be, and understanding your audience, right? And just what Simon said, a lot of times it's that, we want to be the supreme, we want to be this and that. It's like, but that doesn't make sense for what you said your brand is. And then a lot of people go, okay, yeah, you're right. And it's like, yeah, is that what your audience want, or is it just cool? And they go, okay, you're right. Like, I get that. Now I understand why we're going through this process. And a lot of times it's just people trying to project what they want into their brand and not exactly what their brand needs for their audience. And that's one of the most important keys to, marketing and branding and design, period, for a brand, if you're trying to do it properly and not just do the cool thing at the moment.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that bleeds on to the second most important thing, I think, which is understanding what your goals are. I think that a lot of brands want to make a cool brand, but I don't think they often will give you. You'll say like, okay, so but especially if we're talking about like social media or community marketing, we'll be like, well, what do you want to grow by? Like, how many users do you want? Like, what do you consider a successful Discord channel, for example, or like what do you consider a successful Kickstarter? Like, what amount of money are you looking for? Why are you looking for money, for example?
Right.
And I think that it's really important to talk about that really early on, because when you're marketing, and as I know everybody thinks they can do marketing, like everybody, because it's just promoting your thing, right? It's just talking about it on social media. It's just, but I think that the key to it is understanding how do you speak specifically to an audience. That's why we do a lot of voice and tone work with all of the brands we work on, and like not just how to speak to the audience, but how does your brand speak? Like, what is its voice? Like, what's its attitude to like person having a problem? What's its attitude to a person saying that it's cool? Like, how does it respond to those things? And I think that what's important is understanding like the value of that, and also understanding like what are you actually trying to achieve with your brand. You know, if someone says like, hey, we're making a new show and it's an esports broadcast, we're putting in X many dollars into it, and we'll say, okay, cool, what's your target CCV for that? And they'll be like, I don't know, like League is doing like 100,000. And we'll be like, okay, but what are you actually trying to achieve here? Like, what's the expectations? How are you measuring it? Are you measuring CCV, viewership hours? Like what are your measurements, and how do we make a strategy that literally achieves your exact target, as opposed to just doing general marketing around getting it popular? Because some brands, and it's totally okay to say this, just want to sell product.
Yeah.
And if you just want to sell product, there's certain ways to do that. But if you want to build brand awareness, for example, or build brand respect, there's a completely different way to do that. You know, within the gaming space, like a good example is whether to work with influencers or with teams, right? If you want to shift product, work with influencers. Influencers will shift product faster than anybody else, but they won't build as much brand respect for you, won't build as much long-term brand knowledge, brand visibility, brand expectations, because they sell product all day long for a bunch of brands.
Right.
If you want to build like brand awareness, if you want to build a strong brand in the whole space in general, and that in 3 years time people will remember your brand, then you have to spread that out, like some influencer work, maybe sponsor a team, then maybe do like a campaign strategy that supports a particular goal, that supports a belief or pillar that you have of your brand. Like that's how you start building like a holistic like brand visibility. But if you just want to shift product, work with influencers. Just pay an influencer to promote your product, and they will, and you'll sell a crap ton of that product. Like, and it's okay to say that, to be like, that's all we want to do.
But you have to understand what you're actually trying to do and be real, true, and honest with yourself. That's what the creative brief process goes before we touch any design, before we touch any marketing analysis or any of the major points or social media. It's kind of breaking through that so that we understand what you want, and so that you and your team are on the same page as well. And that's what's so crucial when building your brand.
Yeah. I think it's the same as we do a lot of website design now. It's one of our fastest growing areas is proper web design. And when building websites for people, the difference between building a website and using marketing strategy and brand strategy in website design versus someone who wants a social media community built is very different. Because when you're building a website, most people know, they just don't know how to build a website.
Right.
So they're very open to you saying like, look, this is how website psychology works. This is how people read. This is how they're going to perceive these things, and this is how we did this thing. And most people will be like, yep, okay. Like, it's the same as when you work with a lawyer, right? You don't know legal terms, so you just kind of accept what they tell you.
Right.
But when you do social media branding, or if you're doing, for example, like YouTube branding, when you're making thumbnails and like building out campaign strategy around that, everyone has their own opinion on how it should be done. And you'll say like, okay, look, so here's the psychology behind why and how YouTube works. Like, here's how the algorithm is changing currently. Here's the psychology behind a viewer of a YouTube like thumbnail and why a thumbnail is built. And they'll be like, yeah, but I just want a picture of this and this and this. And it, because they've done it before, it feels like it's easy to do. It's a much harder sell. So that creative brief allows us to constantly go back and be like, yes, but your target audience is 13 to 18. And if you look at all these other channels, here's a bunch of research we've done around these other channels, and look at the trends around what works and what doesn't. What we're telling you is what works. What you're telling us is what the 20 to 30-year-old age group want. And that's not what your brand is. And I think that that's super important when doing marketing is really getting that.
Especially if brands are like, yeah, I want to send an email. It's like,
Our mailing list is really big. It's like, I bet it is.
Yeah. How many responses are you getting from that?
Have you met many teenagers that don't know how to filter mailing lists nowadays?
Yeah. That's absolutely insane. So do you guys pick a different strategy for, say, somebody who's just starting up versus a corporation, or do you kind of tackle everything just as it comes? You look at every project individually and then sort of curate a personalized, individualized plan for them?
I mean, yeah, you definitely have to target it depending on what the actual product or scope of work is.
Mm-hmm.
The process of the creative brief kind of still never changes,
Sure.
for the most fact
It
that
gets kind of like
you,
bigger or smaller. That's about it, really. Nothing
yeah, it's
more or
more about
less.
understanding. You still got to understand your brand. Like,
Oh yeah.
regardless if I'm doing your social media, we still need to know as much as we can about your brand as possible. Regardless if I'm doing your website or if I'm just doing a campaign just for a certain time section that's coming up. Like, you still need to understand your brand. So that is usually doesn't change. What changes is how we work with doing the rest of the products depending on the scope of work, right? Because if we're doing social media, a lot of the marketing team will be involved more so, right? If we're doing the website or like social graphics and stuff like that, then the design team kind of takes over a little bit more.
Okay.
We still work alongside one another, and you definitely have to make sure that everything is getting accounted for. But it's like Simon says, depending on the product, depending on the scope of work, just depends on the level of things that we need to do or the amount of things and time that we need to put in. Because of course, like if you're a new company, the strategy for you will be completely different than a company that's already been established and running, right? And we've done this, right? We've been in the process of working with a team that is brand new, which is like the Houston Outlaws, to helping work with and bring back engagement to a team that's already been established, which is Optic Gaming, and just kind of working with a campaign within that brand to rebranding a company that's already been running like NSG, where we redid their look, feel, and style and completely rebranded and reshaped how their brand is and how their brand communicates now from their past logo to their current one.
Yeah.
And with that, I mean, all of them, like I said, still goes through the creative brief portion, but how you implement that is different because one company is trying to build something from nothing, and another company is just trying to re-engage their audience as well as pick people up on the way, but they're just trying to reactivate that fan base and have that grow
Yeah.
from within.
Yeah, and I think like an important question is like, what are your worries when you were dealing with a brand like NSG, for example?
Mm-hmm.
It's a project that I'm really proud of from our team because I think A, we did a good job on it, but also B, I think we were able to provide them with a tool that allowed them to springboard a whole bunch of stuff. And one of the things that I loved about it was the campaign we designed around their launch, which was new look, same nerds. And that's kind of the point, right? We built a brand that was their old brand was very, very gaming.
Mm-hmm.
It was very focused on like a classic community of people who loved what they did. They were very grassroots, and then they suddenly had acquired a huge amount of investment. They were now like, okay, we need to be a proper company now. We need to make something big. We've got all this money coming in that we need to be deploying around. But we don't want to lose like who we were. Like we don't want to lose that core community because that's kind of what made us who we were. And that's why we designed a campaign that was basically saying like, yeah, we might look different, but we're the same old nerds that were here before. Like their executive team didn't change.
Right.
You know, they didn't do it. It wasn't a buyout. It was just them like leveling up in the space. And I think that it's really important to do that. And it's the same with Optic when we work with them, that
Right.
it was about understanding what's the Optic audience. When we knew that if we came in and we're like, new, a good example is EG, you come in, you rebrand, you relogo, everyone's going to be like, whoa, 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 this isn't the brand that we love. Like, what is this? Like, this is a new brand. Like, I'm out. And I think it was really important with Optic to be like, and why we built the Power, Precision, Prestige campaign, which was all about like reminding people why they loved the Optic gaming brand in the first place. Like, why did they get into it? What was so focused? What was so cool about it? And I think that it's really important to take that and create this. It's like Nike's Just Do It, right? It's super
Right.
important to build like a campaign concept that supports what you're trying to do, right? With Outlaws, we had what was the Outlaws campaign
Band
slogan we
together.
had? Oh yeah, it was band together, but also it was like, we don't start fights, we finish them. And it was like a big part of the brand message. It was like, the Outlaws doesn't go and taunt people, but if you come in and taunt Outlaws, they're gonna body you, like they're gonna take you down, right? And I think that built a lot of this. It's the Texas culture. It's that come and take it concept that Texas has, that is very about like, we're proud to be who we are. Don't mess with us.
Yeah.
And it was all about like building the brand around the concept that we're doing. Like with Outlaws, we were trying to build Texas's team, like, or yeah, the team for the whole of Texas. So it's super important to build a brand that speaks to that audience properly. And we didn't care that someone from New York didn't get it for the Outlaws, because that wasn't the target audience. Ironically speaking, all the other regions loved it because it was very American too.
Sure.
Like what is Texas is also kind of quite American. So most of America was really behind the concept.
Yeah. I was about to say, no love for the Dallas Fuel.
We have love for those guys. I mean, we worked side by side with them, but definitely when we were building the brand, because we were Infinite,
right?
Houston was our team. We had to focus heavily on making that the best of.
I mean, they appreciate it. I think.
No, yeah, I love both teams. I love watching both teams play, and it's just I just had to throw that in there a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
No hate. So it sounds like a pretty tough job when going through a rebrand or creating a new brand. Even what are some of the biggest challenges that you guys have faced and had to maneuver around when coming up with strategy?
I would definitely say, when it comes to working with a brand that already has a following, it's definitely trying your best not to alienate the brand or the new direction from the audience. That's always a major challenge, right? Because you want to create something that's new, unique, to give it a little bit more of a fresh feel, and keep people interested in that brand or in that style. But what you can't do is completely remove what the fan loved about that brand. And you see that a few times. You see it a lot of times actually in the esports community, that brands go, "Oh, we're going to rebrand," and they just completely change it, and then everybody's like, what is this? Like, I'm not following that.
It's not even like it's a bad rebrand. It's just not what they wanted.
It was just sort of a shock to go from complete 180 sort of deal.
Yeah, and because of that, I mean, it's also, in any branding project or any agency, when you're working with someone else, it's being able to work with certain egos as well. But you also have to know how to talk to people, right? Sure. So it's like a lot of people just don't know how to have that communication, and that's the reason why we come into conversations where we're more open, friendly, and we try to like break the ice by just being us. Where it's like we're just being wholesome. Like, we love gaming, so a lot of times, like Simon says, just get into the conversation. We're waiting in a meeting and we're waiting for everybody to jump in, and like we were doing just before this, we were just talking about Valorant, right? Or we was talking about a few games beforehand of that we've been playing recently, or what we think about something that just popped up, or the next movie. Like, it's just being honest and having those conversations, right? Or Simon's dog walking in the background, and we start talking about Yama, so it's just being real good and understand how to talk to people. And then when you talk about their brand, understand that their brand is their baby, right? Yeah. And you're not coming in there to tell them how they've been a bad parent, right? You just come there and say like, "Hey, I want to help you out here, here, and here. That way your child has the best future," right? That's the difference, right? You're just not going to come in and kick in the door and say, "Change this, change that. This is not happening. Get them out this room. We're redoing this whole place." Like, no, like, I want to come in, see what you have, see what you got going on, and figure out how I can improve your life and the brand's life and make that work for you in the long term.
Absolutely.
And then I think one of the challenges that every agency faces is like gauging the client's need for you to support them in certain areas. Like some clients just want you to come in and do the job, and don't necessarily want a bunch of extra stuff on that because they're busy, or some clients don't want that because they aren't open to it, which is normally the types of clients we say no to. But other clients are just really busy. So finding like a great way to provide them extra useful, respectful feedback and information and ideas in a way that it benefits them and not just like doing it the exact same way every time, is a really important factor. I think for just any agency it's like you need to be able to understand the clients well, especially the people you talk to on a daily basis, and be able to provide them information that benefits them. So for example, when you're working with a big company, there's always a lot of politics. So there's a lot of upward politics in the big company. So what your job is as an agency is to help the person you're working with to look really good. Like you don't want to threaten them. That's really dangerous. Like first of all, they're going to get rid of you, but second of all, they're going to shut down and you're not going to get good work done. So what you want to do is build an environment where you can help that person look good and help that person show other people how much good work is being done. So like reporting needs to be really structured and really aimed at executives. Whereas when you're working with smaller companies, most of the reporting is like bullet points because they just don't have time. Like they don't want bullshit. They don't want pictures. They just want like, what's the changes? What's been improved? What's changed? That's it. Bullet point report. Here you go, done. And we chat daily anyway, so it's not that big a deal. So I think like getting a good understanding of like the structure, who you're speaking to, how they want to be spoken to, and then how you can help them best do their job well, is probably the biggest challenge that you have, and what makes a good leadership team and a bad leadership team is not understanding. Like we actually had a chat today with the potential new partner of ours who was saying like they hate it when an agency stops working, or when they stop working with someone and the agency is saying like, oh, that client's a dumbass, like not having the respect for the work done and also the client, and understanding what all the challenges they have is super important. Like you have to have respect for them. You have to continue that relationship, not just because you've got to be a good human being, but because it's important to understand that you don't know all of the pressures that they have and what they're coming from, and they need to be confident in to say to you like, okay guys, I'm rammed today, I can't manage this, can you just do this for me? And you will provide it to them in the way they wanted it provided.
Sure.
And I think that that's always a big challenge because it takes a bit of time, and we definitely haven't always hit that well. Like we've actually failed not quite a few times, but a few times with clients where I don't think we were wrong or they were wrong. We just didn't connect quickly enough to do a project well, and either that project was either delayed or we've had to say to them like, this just isn't working out, and we think you should probably work with this group instead of us because they're more in sync with what you're trying to do. So I think it's important to be able to call that really quickly and get a good understanding.
Yeah, but a lot of stuff that we've done with those type of clients is like we'll get them everything that they'll need, but we just figured out by the end of it all that maybe we're just not a good fit when it comes to what they want to take their brand.
Or they change their concept every day. That doesn't help either.
Yeah, that's not great.
No.
Yeah, I think it's a challenge when we have a number of tech company, had a number of tech company clients who are building like applications or technology around gaming or similar to gaming. And we're actually working with one right now that's probably one of the best we've ever worked with. They're incredible. Their product's going to be badass. Can't talk about it. But we have also worked with some others that, because the tech world moves so quickly and competitors come and go really, really quickly, that they've been like, okay, well, our product's going to do this. And then a week later, actually, it's going to do this. Actually, it's now going to do this. And it's impossible to brand for that because you're like, okay, well, we were branding for a product that had these goals, and in a month's time, your product has completely new goals. And we'd said to them like, look, you probably just need to build a really simple, flexible brand until you know exactly what your product's doing, and then you come back to us when you know what the product is, so that we're not wasting your money and your time. Because it's end of the day, sometimes things like that change.
Sure. Yeah, scope of projects definitely can change, and sort of where you want your brand, you see it evolve. Even in the development process, you realize what it is becoming and what kind of you see the vision of it becoming. So yeah, I think it's definitely important to have a game plan for if that sort of situation happens, which it sounds like you guys have thought of pretty much everything when it comes to that, or at least as much as you can. Yeah. There's still variables that you that probably come up every single day that you're like, well, shit, we didn't plan for that. But
yeah, I mean, the general rule is plan to have 20 to 25% of your time be stuff you didn't plan for.
Okay.
Because
yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
If you force plan your day and expect nothing to change, you're gonna be very upset with yourself by the end of it.
That's so true. That's so true.
And so will your entire staff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you think as a whole the esports industry is doing a good or a bad job? How do you think that they're, where do they scale when it comes to marketing itself and trying to expand their reach to maybe some new viewership or like their audience?
I would say, I mean, it's kind of up and down. It kind of depends on the brand or the people that's working on that brand. Mm-hmm. Like I said, we do understand that within this industry, a lot of teams started with, again, someone who just loved playing. They created a team, and then the team blew up, and now they're like, oh, what do I do now? Like, I don't have a background in business. I wasn't expecting me to get a $20 to $50 million investment right now. Now I have to put on like business hat. And so because of that, a lot of teams have, again, that dilemma of we created a brand, we created a style, but that was back then and we really didn't know what we was doing. So how do we move forward with that? And so teams today, you see a lot of them are trying to look at rebranding or redefining themselves. Mm-hmm. Again, we've talked to multiple teams that kind of had this problem that they wanted to talk about and say, hey, you know, where do I take my brand next, and how can I make this viable for something that's long term? You do see some teams actually do it and do it very well. We talked about Mad Lions before, and how Splice turned that brand into something strong that was really focused on the Latin community in Spain, which was very good for them. And worked very well because nobody was in that market and they wanted to represent that place properly and represent their audience correctly. And they did a good job. You see evil geniuses in the sense of people love or hate what they've done with the brand, mainly more on one side than the other. But that, they're trying to do something different where they're like embracing the evil part of their name.
Sure.
Which could be very interesting if done properly. And you see them trying, at least, like they're actively trying to look for that way. There's definitely some things that you can do in order to have understood your audience a little bit better and understand your fan base a little bit better. But you do notice that esports teams are taking it a lot seriously when it comes to how exactly do we want to represent ourselves. And it's slowly going there. This industry is fast moving though. So you'll start seeing, like, I mean, as you have teams going from the top to the bottom and doing kind of like this balancing act right now, where teams understand that sometimes it's not always about winning.
Yeah, I think from our side, we preach quite a lot. Like, you should, when you're building a brand, like, don't be afraid to be polarizing. I think the more polarized you can make your brand to some extent, the better. I think in esports, for maybe the last like 3 or 4 years, as these teams have become teams specifically, but actually also this goes for like leagues as well, have tried to be like, let's please everybody. You know, we want to make a brand that's like open to everyone, that's super attainable. The problem is if you look at the success stories, it's always brands that are polarizing. You know, like if you look at the esports teams right now that are doing the best, it's teams like 100 Thieves, FaZe. In fact, 100 Thieves is actually doing worse now because it's becoming more mainstream. When it was more polarizing, it did better.
Sure.
It's the same with FaZe, right? Like, FaZe Clan has forever been an incredibly polarizing brand.
Oh yeah.
And that is why it's successful. And it's the same we're actually starting to see that more and more teams and companies and clients that we work with are like, no, we're okay being more like this. Like, we're okay with being more opinionated, because we accept that some of the audience isn't going to like this, and that's okay, because that's not our target. We're not targeting gamers. We're targeting like female gamers, or we're targeting gamers between 18 and 21, not 18 and 40.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that it's important to understand that and to use that to your advantage, because there's a lot of people that you can gain community wise. But the more of a strong message you send, the more likely you are to build a community around you of people who have a similar mindset, or it's a style that they want. And I'd honestly like to see more leagues also being a bit more polarizing, a bit more so like maybe stepping a little bit more away from the sports theme, unless you're like Overwatch League, for example, which is designed to be like a sports styled league. Like,
sure.
That's okay for them because that's their style. But it doesn't mean that, for example, like it's what I like about, for example, Flashpoint and B-side stuff is Monty specifically stated, like, this is an esports brand for a maturer or a more mature audience. Like, we don't really care about anyone under the age of 21.
Sure.
And that's it's ballsy to say that, but it's the right move. It's important to say, yeah, we're going to swear probably on stream. Like, our commentators are allowed to curse. That's okay, because we're aiming for a more adult audience. So, like, if you don't like it, don't watch. And I think that if you look at even streamers, content creators, all of them successful streamers and content creators also have that same mindset. It's like, if you don't like what I'm doing, I mean, Summit's a great example.
Oh yeah.
You'll always say that, like, if you don't like that I'm going to play this game, like, you can't make me play a game. I'm going to play whatever the hell I want. And if you don't like it, there's plenty other streamers to watch. Like, and people love him for that. Yeah. His audience loves him. And there's enough people like him to love that or that style. If for example, you want to be like Ninja, who's much more clean cut, aimed at the younger audience, that's his style. He stays to that style, and he does a good job in keeping that style. I think that teams, especially in esports, are realizing we can't just be middle of the road. Like,
sure.
we have to pick a direction to take, and at least be much more heavily that than we're just general, everyone likes us. It's like, yes, everyone will like you, but nobody loves you. And that's a big difference. And
it's
I think
also
that it's
come out of that fear, because that is the biggest fear is, well, if we do this, we know it's safe and we won't really turn too many negative heads.
Yeah.
But at sometimes it's like, sometimes you gotta just kick down the door, right? And that's what it's going to be.
Yeah. Like, do you think FaZe Clan care?
Oh, absolutely.
That people think that they're a masculine brand that girls can't as easily identify with? They don't give a crap. Like, they probably would rather some of that went away from them, but like, they don't care. Like, they're making a shit ton of money from being super polarizing. It's the same with a bunch of other brands. I mean, a good example of a brand doing an interesting thing is like FlyQuest. Right? A lot of people have said like, oh, FlyQuest, they're doing some weird stuff, but they're saying like, right, we want to pick a route where it's like we're green, like we're focusing on like environmental issues. We want to like support influencers and players that have a good opinion on that. Our branding is like that. And it's like, even if you don't agree with it, that just means you're not their demographic. If they can get like cut away enough of a niche for that, then that's good. And it's an issue that, for example, Evil Geniuses has, because they've said, well, our niche is kind of like the bad boys. And it's like, that's cool, but TSM already has that niche in America. So you've got to not only wrestle like fans away from a very polarizing brand, which is TSM, which is the bad boy brand of the American esports scene, but you've also then got to be more of a bad boy than they are, because they're already bad boys. And EG is not really sure what evil really is, because they're like telling you that they're evil, but then they're doing a whole bunch of really nice stuff, which is really, and it's like, okay, well, you have to decide. Like, TSM just does TSM. They don't give a crap. And that's why people like TSM, because that brand is like, and it's had its ups and downs as a brand, but it's still retained that like TSM, chant the name, US brand, like bad boys of esports, like
They've stayed
good.
on
Like,
brand throughout.
yeah. EG used to have that when they had a bunch of bad boys on their brand, you know, like Hydra and Huck and people like that, who were, when they were in the StarCraft era, they were definitely the bad boys of esports. But it's like they then became very mainstream, you know, when they integrated into Twitch. They became very like stagnant for a while, and I love that they're trying to do something with their branding now, but I think that it's very clear that there's a lot of mixed messaging in there about where they should go with it. And they've got a whole bunch of really nice people working there, so when you've got a whole bunch of really nice people, being bad is actually pretty hard. So that's also, it's like, also got to choose a brand that you can manage yourself. So if you want to be bad,
again, that's another reason why we go through the whole creative brief process, because that's things that they have to think about. And honestly, I mean, for me, especially when speaking of like EG in this case, they have to think about it. Like think about it if you wanted to personify like WWE or wrestling in a sense, right? Like The Rock started off as a nobody, then he became a villain that most people don't even know, right? He got popular for being a villain at first, and then he became the people's champ, who was still kind of an asshole.
Yeah, because people are like that.
And then got big and got more famous, and now he's like the people person, and the people who know him now that didn't know him then wouldn't expect that he played those personas to now. But it's kind of what he built himself as a career. And that's what evil geniuses in a sense need to have. And they, like Simon says, they're kind of stuck trying to play on both sides of the fence. And it's like, I mean, pick one, run with it, and say that is who you are, and do it right, which is, I know, understand is a very hard thing to do, but that's the reason why you work with people who can sit on the outside and look in and tell you what it looks like and what things might be perceived, if you did it a different way. Because a lot of time when you look in the mirror, it's kind of hard to see the things that you can do, or look into, you know, ways that you can change it, because you're so focused on like what you know and what you've been seeing for a very long time, that you can't really understand, you know, what other people see when they look back.
And the esports scene is way too popular now and way too populated with brands for you to just get by on like cool graphics and a cool logo like that. That might have been the case 10 years ago, but nowadays, like there's at least 6 or 7 brands in the space that have similarly graphics or similar logos to what you do, and the fans of you probably are fans of all of those brands too. So you're going to then be defined by either the human beings on your brand, so the influencers or the names, or the messages that you're sending to a community. So it's super important to get those things right? Like if your brand image is for example like super inclusive. I mean, a good example is the FaZe owners all transitioning over to this new brand that's focused on diversity. It's like, that's a good idea, a really good idea, but you better freaking do it. Like you better put your money where your mouth is. If you're claiming, isn't it like an all white leadership team as well, like all white male leadership team that made this
for FaZe?
Yeah, pretty sure.
Think so.
Already not diverse. There you go.
Yeah,
it's a good start. Right. You know, like but it's like that's great. It's a great message to send. But you better do it right. You better not have another FaZe clan from that. And it's you can gather around you a community of people that believe the same things you do. And that's the important part about brand building, is gathering a community around you that believe what you do. The research is about finding out if there's a big enough community that believe what you do to make you any money.
It's true.
Because sometimes there's just not, right? You just have to accept the industry's not ready for this yet. You know, like it's not ready for a specific, you know, style.
That's got to be so frustrating to know that this is maybe where it's heading, or this is maybe what would be great for the industry, but not enough people. There's not enough of an audience yet to capture that and to really capitalize on it.
Well, and it's also like the promises brands are giving.
Like it's not GTV. It was You remember they created the whole TV station focused on gaming, but it was
G4.
yeah, it was
Yeah, G4.
just right before everything hit with esports. It was like, oh,
You know what's crazy is I used to watch Halo tournaments on G4, like the old Halo
yeah,
2, and it was insane. That was my introduction to esports. So I completely understand. I think they were
I was
ahead of their
watching that
time.
real tournament
Yeah,
sometimes and stuff like
there was
that.
some, yeah,
It was
there's some
ahead of
past
its time,
stuff.
It
right? It was
was.
moments where it was a great idea, but way too early for them to actually capitalize on it properly. And then like a few years down the line, esports blew up, right?
Yeah.
And then started coming
Well, I mean,
in.
it's like, do you remember the World Cyber Games, WCG? Like World Cyber
Vaguely.
Games, what that ended in like what 2016, I want to say, like no, 14 maybe, and like that. If you did the WCG now with the right backers, like that would be huge. Like people love like country versus country competitive esports. Like they love that
Yeah.
stuff. If you look at Overwatch, for example, like some of their biggest numbers come from the World Championships. Like it's just people love it. People love getting behind a brand like that. So I
Yeah.
think with the right people and the right games, like WCG could be a really, I mean, and also a better theme tune. It was really awful. But
I
I
guess I
think
don't
that
remember that part.
just Google that.
Okay. All right. Fair
That's
enough.
my gift to you. The
Thank you.
WCG theme tune.
Gift or curse?
You listen to it and you decide. I think that what Markel was saying is so prudent now with esports, and I think that as a whole, like as a direct answer to the question, I think that esports is doing really well. I do think that people are overselling it in many cases when they shouldn't be. You know, like having a live stream with 20,000 concurrent viewers as an esports league is really freaking good.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, a lot of brands are being sold on like this is gonna have 70 to 100, and you know this is gonna have 250,000 concurrent viewers, and it's like I think really people still aren't quite able to sell the value of having 20,000 concurrent viewers or like 8,000 concurrent viewers on an esports live stream.
Yeah.
Or they're getting way too much investment money because they've sold the concept and they did well, but the investors were expecting them to do 3 times better than they did.
Right.
And that's a problem too, because the esports concept and the buzzword of esports is really good for getting interest, and people are aware that it's going to make people a lot of money in the future. But that future's not this year or next year. It's like in 5 to 10 years, it could make like sports levels of money, but but it's not there yet. It's still niche. It's super spread, right? That it's in sports. There's 2 or 3 sports that are pulling in like billions of dollars. In esports, there's like 2 that are relevant. Really, there's only League that is pulling in like ludicrous amounts of money. And I think that people understanding that and the fact that then under League, there's like 15 games that are all vying for the possibility to be like the NBA or the NFL. And I think that they're not just fighting with each other, but they're also fighting with like thousands of streamers that are all competing for the entertainment world, which is what it is. And I think that we were talking about it the other day in our Discord. It's like if sports had if sports personalities had the opportunity to just play their sport and live stream it and get viewership from that, sports would have a lot more trouble with viewership than they do. Because right now, if you want to see like soccer or basketball played at a great, really high level, you have to watch the NBA. Like those players can't just chill and play professional level basketball for fun 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Whereas in gaming, they totally can. Like, in fact, many pro players would make more money if they quit being a pro and became a content creator. I mean, like, I'm a Cutie Pie is a good example of that from League, where he was making like 4 times as much as he was as a player being a content creator.
That's
and
insane.
I think that like esports has to try and find a good ground there where it's not, where it either is using influencers or how to work with influencers, or understanding that the audience that like watching competitive gaming is actually quite a lot smaller than they keep selling to people, because they're going like, look at esports, it includes Ninja and Tim the Tatman, and it's like, no, it doesn't. Like, that's not esports.
Those are content creators.
Yeah, and I think that we literally had this problem where we had a client who was like, we want to do an esports related charity campaign, and we want to use Ninja, and we were like, well, there's an issue here. And they're like, what? He's not esports. Like, he used to be esports when he wasn't popular, but now he is popular. He's not esports. Like, it's proven by the fact that yes, he's a really good player. He's really, really good at gaming, but he is nowhere near pro level at these games. Like, if you call Ninja esports to like most gamers, they're gonna laugh in your face and immediately know that you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And I think that the problem is people are selling like the whole pie, when what they really need to do is teach people like how much one piece of the pie is worth from the point of view of like activating an audience. And it's like 8,000 people that love your product will support it for, you know, till death is really freaking valuable and almost impossible to get anywhere else.
Yeah.
And a really good example of that is nothing to do with esports, is Critical Role. Like, it's on tonight.
Oh my gosh.
Like, Critical Role's audience, like, their concurrent viewership, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's really good. It's like 40 to 70K depending on the night.
Yeah.
But they can trigger so many people to buy things.
Oh yeah.
It is absolutely unbelievable the amount of of a community they can push into different areas. But people they have a hard time with sponsorships purely because people don't get it. Like, people, they obviously don't have someone internally who's very good at selling what they have to sell. And people just don't get the value of this audience, like what they can do. Like, I don't entirely know exactly how much it is to sponsor Critical Role, but I doubt it's anywhere near what it is to sponsor the LCS, for example. And I can guarantee you'll get better value for money if you sponsor Critical Role.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like, guaranteed.
And that's the whole argument about influencers versus teams, depending on what you need to do or what you want to do as a sponsor. And sometimes you still can build that brand loyalty with an influencer, but it has to be to the point where the influencer loves your product too. It can't just be a moment of, this is a flash sale, here's a coupon, et cetera, et cetera. But then again, that goes all through marketing strategy. That goes all through the creative brief. That go through all of us explaining to you and understanding from you as a company or a brand what you look to gain with your marketing ad campaign. And so,
I mean, don't even get me started on influencer marketing.
Yeah.
That's a completely other topic. You know?
Yeah, I mean, we could honestly talk about that for hours. Micro influencers and things like that. It's insane.
Somebody who's nobody to picking somebody who's ninja, understanding why you want to do either
like,
or.
What's their motivations? Like, people who think influencers are just mercenaries who are going to work for money, that's not the case anymore. The big dogs in that space, they don't need your money.
No.
Like, you better be able to offer them something else other than money, because money is not the problem.
Conversations about that, even when it comes to large charities looking to be within the gaming esports realm. And it's like, you got to understand, like, they could care less about that. I mean, they understand that they want to help out with the charity, and a lot of people do want to be positive and do something to reinforce, but they also want something from you that they're not going to get from anybody else. They're not going to get from just their.
It's like one of the things we've spoken to a lot of game companies about, and I won't go too far into influencer marketing, but if you're a new company, this is my bit of advice to new companies. If you're a new company and you want to activate big influencers, give them some of your company. Easiest way. Be like, hey, what if you came on board as like our influencer, like of our influencer, like advisor, and we'll give you a small % equity in our company.
Sure.
Influencers are super interested in that, because when they stop being caster, commentator, influencer, broadcaster in 2 years' time, they know, because they're not stupid. They know that the life of an influencer can abruptly end.
Oh yeah.
Like as Dr. Disrespect can attest.
Oh
right?
man, don't even get me started on that.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
what it does is if they've now got equity in like 10 other companies, that all they had to do was advise them, help them promote, help them grow to something big, they have like millions of dollars sitting from very little input from them through the process. But those companies have had like massive amounts of promotion from that. Like if you can get Tim the Tap Man to invest in your company, even his time in your company for some equity, you have got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of promotion for basically providing him with like 2 to 4% of your
But
company.
it's either that or you have to give them some type of an amazing experience that they know.
If you have a video game, put them in your game.
Yeah.
Easiest way.
That's helped. That's helped a lot. I know, especially. I watch a brand called Funhouse on YouTube. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if y'all are familiar. But
yeah, we did some stuff with them with the Outlaws at PAX, I think.
Oh yeah, and also RTX. I know you guys.
RTX.
I constantly, my wife and I go to RTX every year, and we saw the Outlaws there, and we were like, "Oh, this is super awesome." But anyway, so yeah, they do marketing. They put one of their lead influencers and content creators, James Willems, into Psychonauts game, which is like one of his favorite franchises, from my understanding, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm in the game, and they're getting all of this promotion from it, and a game that I wouldn't have even batted an eye at. I'm like, okay, I might want to play this now. Yeah, it's just it's insane how some of that goes.
The thing is, money can't buy that. Like
no.
money cannot buy
passion.
That influencer to get in a game that they love.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and that's where you're clever. Like a good example right now is Cyberpunk. Like they know what they're doing, right? Like okay, CD Projekt Red are like celebrities in their own right, but
yeah,
how to get influencers totally important. I mean, have you heard how much Jesse Cox has talked about the fact that he's in that game?
Like, oh yeah.
And he's like it's like a cameo walk-on role. Like,
we're picking up
tiny side quest. Yeah,
that's also like isn't Grimes?
But he's like.
I think there's like I think Grimes is in it too.
And CD Projekt Red are a great example of how to market using influencers without giving them any money at all. Yeah. Like for example, they sent Kojima a like graphically crafted, the most gorgeous thing you've ever seen, like him on an Akira style bike. From Cyberpunk.
Yeah, I saw that.
And genius.
Yeah,
genius.
It's amazing.
I was going to promote it. And you didn't really have to do nothing but get the graphics done and say thank you from the main Twitter.
I mean, just today during Xbox's showcase, right? So Cyberpunk was mentioned, and they didn't even have to show anything. It was during the Grounded trailer, and they were like, if you're looking for the biggest game of the year, or if you're waiting for the biggest game of the year, you're waiting for Cyberpunk. And it's just like, and they put their logo in there and everything, and then Cyberpunk retweeted them like, we see you, Grounded, and stuff like that. I mean, their social media accounts are insane. I absolutely love them. And they know their brand and they know their audience, because they're not afraid to kind of clap back at people and they're like, yeah, we're not going to be that type of game. This is our game. This is what we're making. We know our audience, and we know that our audience is going to love it. Yeah. And
Cyberpunk is incredibly polarizing as a brand.
100%.
Like it is literally, its name is a polarized like style.
Yeah.
So like, and everybody loves it because they're drawn to that. Like people are drawn to that. Like they want to see, if it's polarizing away from them, they want to see it fail. If it's polarizing towards them, they want to see it succeed.
Yeah.
Like it's very. Yeah,
I mean, that's the main reason why we run with the motto "Dare to Disrupt." I mean, because that's the whole point. Like Simon just said, no matter which side it's on from you and your views or whatever, you will pay attention to it, regardless if you like it or not. you know, and I mean, they even go with, you know, certain politicians and stuff, like, regardless if you like them or not, you know who they are.
Yeah,
And
it's true.
you talk to them or talk about them in some type of light, whether it's good or bad.
Yep.
And that's why you
Yeah.
gotta understand that that's how it works. And people, I mean, when you're in the middle of the road and you're just doing the day to day, nobody pays attention to you. But if you got the busted down car going down the street, they'll pay attention. If you're a Ferrari flying down the road, they will pay attention. But if you're that sedan that's just sitting there doing the speed limit, you will get passed and overlooked. I mean, it's the truth.
100%. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree.
In summary, don't buy a sedan, Markel.
Buy the Ferrari. Buy the Ferrari.
I'm not looking for the attention of my
clients. Makes the big bucks, you know.
There you go. There you go. I like it. I like it. Well, I just have one final question for you guys to kind of wrap everything up. For people, since this is sort of an education podcast, we want to inform people.
Shit, sorry about that.
Oh no, you're good. No, I mean it's basically bringing to light what esports is and the different facets of esports, right? So you guys are just top of the line in your field, and that's why I wanted your opinion. I trust you guys. I know you guys have the experience to back up what you're saying because you've done it. And don't worry, I don't care about the language or anything like that. I'm not worried about that. What's that?
Beep it out in post. You know?
There you go. There you go.
I'm English. People just accept that I'm rude.
There you go. They're like, oh no, it's okay. But no, basically, what would you say to people who want to get into the career of brand marketing or marketing in general, not just mainly as it pertains to esports, but just in general? Like, what advice would you give people who are looking to get in this space?
So for the creative design aspect of things, what I like to tell people all the time is to focus on building that portfolio, of course. But in your portfolio, think about options outside of just social media or stream graphics. A lot of the designers, a lot of the creators within this space only think about, you know, social media and what your stream is going to look like. And that's mainly because that's what people see majority of the time. But go outside of that. You know, how does that brand that you created for social media work with the stream, but also work with the website, maybe even package, maybe even merch, maybe even print in this area? Like, how can you make this a collective whole? And can you take that collective whole and put that into some type of active campaign? And that's the biggest thing I would like to see more within the esports community, and something that we like to build on for the esports community is building that campaign, like actually those stories, those narratives. Everybody always wants to talk about the major brands. They always want to talk about the Nikes. They always want to talk about the Apples. But those brands built a campaign that went across every branch of their business, right? Just Do It was not a one-off, right? It wasn't, oh, this looked cool for this one moment and we're done with it. No, that's what they live, breathe, and speak every time their brand does anything, even with all their other brands below it. They make sure that that is preached throughout everything. And so when you're a designer or creative within this space, think about how you can make that story for whatever brand that you're working with, and not just, hey, this is a flashy graphic.
Sure.
And I think from a marketing standpoint, I think the biggest thing is be a sponge, like appreciate everything, don't have an ego, you know, like for example, something we do in a company, like every Monday we do a meeting, so it's after our meeting where we tell everyone all the work they have to do for the week and assign tasks. We have a meeting where we just show a load of really cool stuff that we've found the week before. So we have like a creative references like channel in our Slack, and if you find stuff that's cool or you think was done well, or now ironically with one of our new team, we've now coined the people who don't do things quite so well list, and we just talk about it. Like we just go like, hey, we saw this commercial about toothpaste that was really, really sick. Or like one that we talk about a lot at the moment is Lego social media. Like Lego those guys are gods at social media, and like what they do and how they do it, and showing like, oh, they did this really cool thing, or there's a campaign over here that was done. Like really just like try and take in as much information of examples as you can, and like appreciate what everyone does.
Stay inspired and up to date.
Yeah, I think that, and then from a social media perspective, I can't speak on it like literally running social media because that's not me, but the team that do that. But I know that what they would say is like, get stuck in, like go find an influencer who needs some help with social media and just do it for free for them. Like go do some social media management. Like go in there, find an influencer, be like, hey, do you need some help? I'd like to just help on a few days a week, help you moderate your channel, help you moderate your social account, and just get experience and try stuff out and build a good relationship with an influencer that you like. Don't pick like freaking Ninja or Shroud. Like pick a 500 concurrent viewer, 1,000 concurrent viewer influencer and just help.
Yeah.
And because social media, other than doing a degree in social communication or marketing, the best way to learn social media strategies and algorithms is to just do the work, like do the job. Like our social guys like live and breathe social media. Like they love it, but they also all have PR degrees and communications degrees and copywriting degrees and marketing degrees, but they do it to learn to be better at social media. And I think that it's really important to know that like with social media, especially, like you have to have the qualification, especially on typography. Like you better be good at writing, like to do social media. Like you have to be. It's a required skill is copywriting, really, in my opinion, for social media. Copywriting is probably the best degree you can have for social media over anything else. But I think that like having that and just getting stuck in those situations, like marketing is really about like absorbing as much information as you can. Social media is all about doing as much as you can to like get the experience of like how people react and stuff.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys. I think that's gonna about wrap us up for the show today. Where can everybody find you guys on the internet?
AOE Creative.com, and definitely you can hit us up on our LinkedIn accounts using our name, or Twitter.
We're so business.
Yeah,
LinkedIn is our social media.
I know. I mean, I have Twitter. I try to watch it. I'm like the worst with social media, but Twitter.com, Markel_Lee, and Simon can probably put his as well.
I'll link everything down below.
Yeah, look for Simon Bennett on LinkedIn. It's the best way. LinkedIn's my social media account.
It's so funny. You guys,
we have other people that are good at the actual social media. I'm good at LinkedIn.
There you go. Well, it's so funny. You guys spend so much time on your clients and building up their brands and things like that. And I have a feeling that's what it is, right?
It's like that, like, do as we say, not as we do.
We want to do good shit for our clients. Like, we want to make sure that they're taken care of. And honestly, the reason why Simon and I work so well together is because of the fact that we care about the work we do, and not so much of like us being the highlight of anything.
Right.
And it even comes down to our team and the people under us. We want to help showcase that they're great people as well, and it's not all about us, because we are just a part of AOE Creative, and the whole team is the entirety of.
We're probably the dumbest, actually. Like, I'm 100% the dumbest person in AOE, like, by far.
Well, okay. I don't know how to respond to that.
Definitely the dumbest person in AOE. Like,
I love that. That's just where the video is gonna cut right there. It's just I'm probably the dumbest person. End of show. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate y'all coming on the show today. Like I said, I'll link everybody's socials down below. Definitely go check out AOE on their website. They know what they're doing. If you can't tell, I mean, we've been talking about it for what? An hour and a half. These guys know what they're doing. They can help you build your brand from the ground up, or if you have an established brand and you want to gain a new audience, they can do that as well. So definitely hit them up if you have a great project or a great idea for your brand and want to really do it right. So
actually, one more point I want to add.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
If you're not doing a brand and you're just a kid who wants to learn about it, also hit us up.
Yeah,
that's totally fine. Like, we'll talk to pretty much anyone. So.
You guys did a community sort of class, right? Not too long ago.
Yeah, we're helping out the community for a lot of the kids that were in
I
school.
think even yesterday we did a talk for schools. So,
but yeah, we help people who was in school that didn't have the opportunity of actually meeting professors to at least talk to somebody who's in the industry that want to learn about the creative industry, regardless if it's design, marketing, illustration, video, photography, etc. We just wanted to give those, especially because Corona is stopping people from going to school, the opportunity just to talk and learn and mentor.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk to you guys about that off camera because I'm curious to learn more about that. But definitely go check them out. And always, guys, thank you so much for supporting the video. You guys know what to do. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTuber stuff that we always tell you to do. But until then, we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.